According to the National Electrical Code, specifically Table 110.34a, the minimum working clearance for face-to-face Deadfront switchgear operating at a nominal voltage greater than 1 kV and less than or equal to 15 kV is dictated by Condition 3, which requires a 9-foot clearance. It's essential to understand why Condition 3 applies in this scenario and why Conditions 1 and 2 are not relevant. Condition 1, as referenced in the question, relates to equipment that is considered guarded. Guarded equipment has specific characteristics as defined in Table 110.26a of the NEC. This definition is crucial in determining whether Condition 1's reduced clearance of 5 feet could be applied. However, Deadfront switchgear, while designed with safety in mind by enclosing energized components, does not meet the NEC definition of being guarded as detailed in Table 110.26a. The term guarded, in the context of the NEC, implies a higher level of protection than simply having a dead front. It typically involves physical barriers or enclosures that prevent accidental contact with energized parts. Deadfront construction provides a degree of safety, but it doesn't inherently classify the equipment as guarded under the code's definition. Therefore, Condition 1 is not applicable to typical Deadfront switchgear installations. Condition 2 is also not applicable. In the context of Table 110.34a, Condition 3 mandates a 9-foot working clearance. This requirement is based on the voltage level and the inherent risks associated with working on or near energized equipment. The NEC prioritizes safety and aims to provide adequate space for personnel to perform their tasks without undue risk of electrical shock or arc flash. It is important to correctly interpret and apply NEC tables like 110.34 to ensure safe and compliant electrical installations. Misinterpreting these tables can lead to hazardous conditions and code violations. When working with medium voltage equipment, such as 15 kV switchgear, adhering to the specified working clearances is critical for the safety of qualified electrical workers. These clearances provide sufficient space to maneuver, use tools, and react to unexpected events while minimizing the risk of electrical hazards. The NEC provides specific guidelines for working clearances to ensure a safe working environment around electrical equipment. Table 110.34 outlines the minimum required clearances based on voltage level and the conditions present. These conditions are determined by the presence of grounded surfaces or exposed energized parts on the opposite side of the workspace. The correct application of these clearances is essential for compliance with the NEC and for the safety of personnel working on or near electrical equipment. When evaluating working clearances, it is crucial to consider the specific configuration of the equipment and the surrounding environment. The presence of walls, ceilings, or other obstructions can affect the available working space and may require adjustments to the installation to meet the NEC requirements. It is also important to ensure that the working space is properly illuminated and free from obstructions that could impede movement or create hazards. In addition to the minimum working clearances specified in Table 110.34a, the NEC also addresses other safety requirements for working on or near electrical equipment. These requirements include the use of appropriate personal protective equipment (PPE), such as arc-rated clothing and gloves, as well as the implementation of safe work practices such as lockout/tagout procedures. Adhering to these safety requirements is essential for preventing electrical accidents and injuries. Qualified electrical workers should be thoroughly trained in the proper procedures for working on or near energized equipment and should be familiar with the NEC requirements for working clearances and safety. Regular safety audits and inspections can help to identify potential hazards and ensure that all safety requirements are being met. By prioritizing safety and adhering to the NEC requirements, electrical contractors and facility managers can create a safe working environment for personnel working on or near electrical equipment. In summary, understanding and applying the NEC working clearance requirements is essential for ensuring the safety of electrical workers and the proper installation of electrical equipment. Always consult the latest edition of the NEC and seek guidance from qualified electrical professionals when in doubt. When dealing with electrical installations, specifically concerning working clearances, several key aspects must be meticulously considered to ensure safety and compliance with the National Electrical Code. Firstly, it is crucial to correctly identify the voltage level of the equipment. Table 110.34 in the NEC provides different working clearance requirements based on voltage ranges. Ensuring accurate voltage identification is the foundation for applying the correct clearance standards. Secondly, the specific configuration of the electrical equipment setup needs to be assessed. The NEC categorizes working conditions based on the presence of grounded surfaces or exposed energized parts on the opposite side of the workspace. These conditions dictate the required minimum working clearance. For instance, Condition 1 applies when there are insulated or grounded surfaces, while Conditions 2 and 3 address situations with grounded or exposed energized parts. Thirdly, understanding the term guarded is vital. As previously clarified, Deadfront Switchgear doesn't automatically qualify as guarded under the NEC definition. Guarded implies a level of protection that actively prevents unintentional contact with energized components, typically through physical barriers or enclosures. Therefore, relying solely on the Deadfront design to claim Condition 1 clearance would be incorrect. Fourthly, physical obstructions and environmental factors within the workspace need to be accounted for. Walls, ceilings, or other equipment can impact the usable working space, potentially necessitating adjustments to the installation to maintain compliance with the NEC mandated clearances. Furthermore, the NEC emphasizes the importance of proper illumination within the working space. Adequate lighting enhances visibility and reduces the risk of accidents while performing tasks near electrical equipment. Fifthly, personal protective equipment plays a significant role in electrical safety. The NEC requires qualified electrical workers to use appropriate PPE, such as arc-rated clothing, gloves, and eye protection when working on or near energized equipment. The selection of PPE should be based on a thorough assessment of potential hazards, including arc flash and electric shock risks. Sixthly, implementing and enforcing safe work practices is crucial. Lockout/tagout procedures, for example, ensure that electrical equipment is de-energized before maintenance or repair work begins, minimizing the risk of accidental energization. Additionally, regular safety audits and inspections can help identify potential hazards and ensure adherence to safety protocols. Seventhly, training and qualification of personnel are essential. Electrical workers must undergo comprehensive training to understand the NEC requirements, safe work practices, and the proper use of PPE. Only qualified individuals should be permitted to work on or near energized electrical equipment. Eighthly, documentation and record keeping are important for demonstrating compliance with the NEC and for tracking maintenance activities. Accurate records of inspections, repairs, and modifications to electrical equipment can help identify trends and prevent future problems. Ninthly, coordination with other trades and disciplines is necessary to ensure a safe and efficient working environment. Electrical work often interfaces with other building systems such as mechanical, plumbing, and fire protection systems. Effective communication and coordination among different trades can prevent conflicts and ensure that all work is performed safely and in accordance with applicable codes and standards. Tenthly, continuous improvement is a key aspect of electrical safety management. Regular reviews of safety practices, incident investigations, and feedback from workers can help identify areas for improvement and enhance the overall safety culture. By embracing a culture of continuous improvement, organizations can proactively address potential hazards and prevent electrical accidents. In conclusion, ensuring appropriate working clearances for electrical equipment involves a comprehensive approach that encompasses accurate voltage identification, proper assessment of working conditions, adherence to NEC guidelines, use of PPE, safe work practices, qualified personnel, documentation, coordination, and continuous improvement. By meticulously addressing these aspects, organizations can create a safer working environment for electrical workers and minimize the risk of electrical hazards. Remember that the NEC is a living document that is updated regularly to reflect changes in technology and industry best practices. It is essential to stay current with the latest edition of the NEC and to consult with qualified electrical professionals when in doubt. Let's delve deeper into each of these aspects, providing more detailed explanations and practical examples. First, let's consider voltage identification. Accurately determining the voltage level of electrical equipment is paramount because the NEC working clearance requirements vary based on voltage ranges. Incorrect voltage identification can lead to inadequate clearances, increasing the risk of electrical hazards. To ensure accurate voltage identification, always refer to the equipment's nameplate, which typically provides the nominal voltage rating. Use calibrated test equipment to verify the voltage if necessary. If there is any uncertainty about the voltage, consult with a qualified electrical engineer or technician. Second, let's examine the specific working conditions. The NEC categorizes working conditions based on the presence of grounded surfaces or exposed energized parts on the opposite side of the workspace. Condition 1 applies when there are insulated or grounded surfaces. Condition 2 applies when there are grounded parts on one side and exposed energized parts on the other side or insulated surfaces on both sides. And Condition 3 applies when there are exposed energized parts on both sides of the workspace. To determine the appropriate working condition, carefully assess the surrounding environment and identify any grounded surfaces or exposed energized parts. If there is any doubt, err on the side of caution and assume a more restrictive working condition. Third, let's discuss the definition of guarded. As previously mentioned, Deadfront Switchgear doesn't automatically qualify as guarded under the NEC definition. Guarded implies a level of protection that actively prevents unintentional contact with energized components, typically through physical barriers or enclosures. Examples of guarded equipment include enclosed busways with barriers to prevent accidental contact and switchgear with interlocks that prevent access to energized parts while the equipment is in operation. Fourth, let's consider physical obstructions and environmental factors. Walls, ceilings, and other equipment can impede access to the working space and reduce the effective working clearance. To address this, relocate obstructions if possible or increase the working clearance to compensate for the reduced space. Additionally, ensure that the working space is adequately illuminated to enhance visibility and reduce the risk of accidents. Fifth, let's examine the importance of personal protective equipment. The NEC requires qualified electrical workers to use appropriate PPE when working on or near energized equipment. This PPE includes arc-rated clothing, gloves, eye protection, and hearing protection. The selection of PPE should be based on a thorough arc flash hazard analysis, which determines the potential arc flash incident energy and the required level of protection. Sixth, let's discuss safe work practices. Safe work practices are essential for preventing electrical accidents and injuries. These practices include lockout/tag-up procedures, which ensure that electrical equipment is energized before maintenance or repair work begins. Additionally, use insulated tools and equipment to minimize the risk of electric shock. Seventh, let's emphasize the importance of training and qualification. Electrical workers must undergo comprehensive training to understand the NEC requirements, safe work practices, and the proper use of PPE. Only qualified individuals should be permitted to work on or near energized electrical equipment. Eighth, let's consider documentation and record keeping. Accurate records of inspections, repairs, and modifications to electrical equipment can help identify trends and prevent future problems. These records should include the date of the inspection, the name of the inspector, any findings or recommendations, and any corrective actions taken. Ninth, let's discuss coordination with other trades. Electrical work often interfaces with other building systems such as mechanical, plumbing, and fire protection systems. Effective communication and coordination among different trades can prevent conflicts and ensure that all work is performed safely and in accordance with applicable codes and standards. 10th, let's emphasize the importance of continuous improvement. Regular reviews of safety practices, incident investigations, and feedback from workers can help identify areas for improvement and enhance the overall safety culture. By embracing a culture of continuous improvement, organizations can proactively address potential hazards and prevent electrical accidents. Remember, electrical safety is everyone's responsibility. By following these guidelines and prioritizing safety in all electrical work, we can create a safer working environment for electrical workers and prevent electrical accidents and injuries.